There you go.
You see it on the corner, right?
Yep.
Carly Sansom, like handsome.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm great, Josh. How are you?
Fantastic. Are you going to send this out to like all your friends? Look what I did.
I was like, I know, I was kind of like thinking of, hey, haven't been, been enjoying maternity leave, but also look what I did.
Yeah, so for those of you that are watching, so this is what I have started to call, I don't know, did I share with you what I want to call this? I want to call this the Masters of the Learningverse. Did you grow up with He-Man? Was He-Man your era? So He-Man and She-Ra was like my era. He was the master of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe.
Nice.
So I'm calling this the Masters of the Learningverse, and I relate
Love
to
that.
you as a master of the learningverse. I am not. I'm just curious about, if I'm not He-Man, I'm L&D man. I'm curious about learning and development, and I want to like talk to people who are in the game and and their experience. So
Well, I'm humbled by that, Josh. Thanks.
oh yeah, look, I yeah, the last time we chatted however many months ago, and you yeah, I had such like a wealth of information, and I was like, I need to talk to more. I want to talk to more people like this, and I want to record it and share it with people. And what's cool is, right, is that you and I like know each other from way from way before. So I'm going to be sharing this to people in my newsletter and through Instagram and whatnot, and people will get a lot of value of this. But then there are our mutual friends who are like, what? Like, what is that?
Their minds will be blown.
So for those of you that don't know, Carly and I went to summer camp together, a previous life, many moons ago.
Many moons.
I was I was in charge of the dining hall.
I was going to say, let's call it a group leader. I don't know, but you were in charge of me and my people.
So at our camp, there are waiters. When you're 16, there are it's the year after being a camper and the year before being a counselor. So it's a super fun summer, that special summer in between those years, where you wait tables, you serve all the campers and counselors. And I was in charge for 2 summers of those people, and Carly was one of my people. And now we're here.
So people ask me like, have you ever been in wait staff before? And I'm like, well, I don't know if you consider this, but yes. And then I describe it and people are like, hard no, that is not the same as working at a restaurant. I was like, okay, no. But fine.
It is a very, I keep hitting my table. It's a very no, it is not that. Like, no, you did not check into like the computer and 86, the scallops. No, like you did not have to do that. It was very much.
But you did have like 10 to 12 campers be like, more cereal, and you're like racing in the back to try and like get them the fruity pebbles that they really wanted.
Yeah, I want to say it's closer to like the army than like actually serving. Being in like the hospitality industry.
Yeah, fair.
So that is no longer what we do. You and I did not pursue careers in that.
No.
This was 15 to 20 years ago. So you are in L&D now, right? This is, you work at Apple.
I do.
I don't know if any of you have heard of that. I don't know if I could get into it, but please Google it for those of you watching.
Super small
listening.
Company, pretty
little
niche.
Startup. And you're down in Austin, Texas. How's everything down in Austin? Austin's crazy.
Great. It's currently South by Southwest, so the town is buzzing. It's great. Weather's been beautiful. It's in the 70s, unlike last month where we had our ice storm. So
that's what I was talking about.
Yeah. We're back in full swing. A lot of music and film going on right now. Pretty cool. And it's a fun city to be in, especially now.
Nice. Do you have any, that's not something, does Apple get involved with that, or?
I don't know if they sponsor any events. My previous employer did. Indeed, always would sponsor events. So I've seen some cool artists through them. But you just pop yourself downtown and you'll just find cool things going on all the time. So it's really cool. Just the whole city comes alive with like random, but ultimately maybe one day famous artists, and you could just go and hear
It's
some good
amazing.
music. And yeah, it's really cool.
I have to get down there. I've never been there. I have
It
to
is
come
awesome.
check it out.
Yeah, please do.
So you're at Apple. You even just name dropped another company. You were at Indeed before that. So tell me, like, how did you get in? How did you get into this? How did you end up?
Yeah.
Tell me the trajectory of your career.
Okay. For sure. And it's interesting. There isn't like a major in university for learning and development. I feel like a lot of
There is
people
not. There is
find their
not.
way in this.
I'm gonna drink out
Uh,
of my big water. Just,
I'll,
but you
I'll
do.
I'll join you. I'll join you. Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers.
I feel like a lot of people wind up in learning and development in two ways. One is if they're have a love of learning and developing people, which was really my path. And I'll share a little bit more about that in a minute. And the other is if you're part of the business, you wind up being really good at the thing that the business needs support on. And then they tap you to be like, hey, can you like teach other people how to do what you're doing? So like if you're in sales and then you become like a sales trainer because you rocked it on those calls and people want you to replicate it. So you'll have a lot of like product experts that wind up in L&D because they know the field that you're teaching. And then you have someone like me who my first job when I got a car, my parents were like, you got to work. And I decided to become a tutor in my neighborhood and was tutoring all the kids. And then to put myself through studying abroad in Australia, and it was really expensive, found some people to tutor. And in grad
Nice.
school was a teaching assistant and kind of, I loved being a TA. It was like my favorite part about grad school. And so I always found opportunities to be in the learning space and to help others succeed in their learning efforts. Also SAT and ACT tutors. So, like loved that environment. And so when I was coming out of grad school and really thinking about what to do for my, first job, those were the roles that I was trying to find myself in. And my first role was at Indeed as a career coach. I found a role that was helping tech talent get jobs. And so coaching them through their interviews, through their resume reviews, negotiations, and loved it. I loved that one-on-one connection. I loved being a coach and a support to them in such a critical part of their lives, getting a new job. And that team grew, and I was able to, look internally to support our team with their onboarding and their growth for the role and how to be successful as a career coach. Wound up leading a team of career coaches and ultimately just continue to love projects and opportunities to develop, whether that was my internal team, whether that was external candidates, and parlay that into a formal learning and development specialist role within Indeed, supported some product folks and some sales teams, and then moved my way on to Apple, where I now support an operations team.
Got it. So crazy. So it just sort of organically blossomed and scaled from there, right? And so
Yeah,
going back to what we were talking about before, did you become a counselor at camp?
I
Or
did. I was a counselor for 2 summers.
so right. Okay, I thought so.
Yeah.
So yeah, so like you love that. I mean, and that's totally why I relate to you, why we're even having this conversation, is because of that relatable like feeling, right? That okay, so like counselor at camp, cultivating, community with these kids and that connection with kids. Okay, cool. And then tutoring, right? Instead of just two months of summer, right? And then during the year tutoring. And then you went to college. Where'd you go to college?
University of Michigan.
Nice. I've heard it.
Yeah.
I think I've heard of that one
Go
too.
blue.
Yeah, not a huge university.
I tend to
Not an
pick these like really obscure places and make my way through them. Yeah.
not absolutely massive area and population and brand. Yeah, so you went there. Like you said, they don't have L&D programs, right?
Right.
At colleges. What did you study?
Yeah. So I studied psychology and sociology. Always had that. I think the common thread here is people. Like, always
Right.
fascinated by how people tick, how we're both similar and very different, and what are the forces that shape us from, from a cognitive level, like how much we're all similar, but then sociologically, whether it's economically, gender, geographic, what are the different things that ultimately make us all unique? And I was always fascinated by that, and wanted to dig deeper into that. So every time I'd meet someone, I want to, I ask the deep questions. Like, I want to know, like, what makes you you? And so senior year, I actually got a job as a peer advisor at the Career Center and got to meet all sorts of people looking for career advice. And that actually parlayed really well into my first job at Indeed.
Right.
But yeah, I always got joy out of helping someone ignite that spark in them. If I can help them get it, something can click. And I'm talking to a coach here, so I know that feeling.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
It's really meaningful.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Totally. That's in the work that I do. That's the thing that it's not like I'm trying to get that, because if I try to get that, then it's like right? It's like I'm attached to something.
Sure.
We could talk about anything. If you're attached to something, here's a little coaching nugget. If you're really attached to getting something and you don't get it, then it leads to disappointment, right? But if you're committed to something, like I'm committed to being curious, or you're committed to being curious, asking questions, getting to know somebody, the outcome of that are those moments. So you don't like live for them, but like when you just live with a person and then and listen and ask questions, then that little nugget comes, and then it's like, it's so sad. It's so satisfying.
Yeah, it's that process. To your point, like the outcome is so satisfying, but it's the conversation, it's the growth, it's the journey that, and like letting someone know that you're in their corner, whether it's when you're onboarding them, it's like, yeah, joining a new company is hella scary.
Yeah.
Let me be there with you. You're not alone. Or it's to develop a skill, soft or hard skill. Like, yeah, you want to do well in your job and it's going to take some time to get there. Let's work together on that. It's developing this level of trust that they may not have in a different part of the organization. So I've developed some really nice relationships, and that's what makes it fun to come back to work. My peers, but also we can call them students, but different employees, helping them be their best selves is really rewarding.
Nice. Yeah, this is all I, as a coach, I'm not sure if I like started to, introduce me or who I am on this thing, right? I just jumped into this, right? This is the first episode of, and so it's going to be rusty, and that's all good. I'm not attached to it, right? That this is what I do as a coach. This is what I do. Josh Klein, I work with people one-on-one on business coaching, leadership coaching, whatever it is that they have going on, whatever it is the thing that they want to work on, whether that's something personal or something very much in their career, as well as do corporate trainings, right? That I do corporate work with folks. And yeah, it is very much just like living in that process and connecting with people, right? It's you said the word process. It's very much being just committed to whatever this process is, and you just let the results, like not being attached to any results, and let it fall as it may. And typically when you do that, those end results are something like juicy and delicious, right? Like it's really like you get somewhere. So Michigan, psychology and sociology, right? I went to Syracuse and was a psychology major, and
Nice.
I just did it to do it, and I was like interested in it, but I was like, well, I don't want to be a psychologist, but like here's what I'm going to graduate with, right? And or my parents will not let me, send me home. So I studied that, and I thought it was very interesting, but I was like, I don't want to go to grad school for this. What does this look like? And I had a million different jobs, but it kind of it's sort of like a similar trajectory where it's like, well, how do I work with people? But it just went into different places. So college there, tutoring, you worked at the Career Counseling Center, and then you went to grad school. And that was in Texas. That was University.
That was. University of Texas at Austin.
So we're in Michigan. This is the map, and then you're down to Texas.
I was like, let's have experience winter. Got 4 winters. I'm like, bye winters. I'm going back to sunshine. I'm from Florida. I was like, I need to go back. I had enough of it.
Right.
Yeah. So picked another great football program, big state school. Gotta love it. And it's funny.
Is Texas a big state? I'm just kidding.
I was gonna say, wait.
Is Texas like large? Okay.
Yeah.
Once again,
picking these small niche places, pretty off the radar. You may not have heard of any of them.
Is Texas bigger than Michigan? Not the states. I'm sorry, the universities. University of Texas, is that bigger than University of Michigan? Because University of Michigan was like 40,000 people.
Yeah, I think Texas is bigger. I think it's close to 60.
Yikes.
Yeah, yikes is right. Pretty wild. Okay. But it's number 2 most winning football program in college football. Michigan is number 1. So, I pick them well.
I did
number 1 and number 2.
In the history of them. Okay, got it. In my lifetime, I don't think I've seen a Michigan one.
Okay,
not that I remember.
Ouch. No, you're right.
I'm just taking inventory. That wasn't a dig. I root for Michigan. They've been great recently. And then Texas, I do remember when they won and beat USC. I was right out of college when that happened.
Yeah. Both programs have ebbed and flowed throughout the years, but Michigan's on the current high, which is awesome.
It's got to be fun to be a fan of those schools.
It is, and the city's really come alive. So you said something earlier that I was like, you're like, I didn't study psychology and think I'd become a psychologist, but I studied sociology and was like, I will be a sociologist because I didn't know what else that could really translate into, but I love learning and I wanted to instill that thirst for learning in others. So I was like, great, I'll be a professor with a summer break. That's fantastic. So naively thought that that's what being a PhD and a professor was like. Here I am, not in that path. So I ultimately realized that I love consuming knowledge more so than producing it. And I liked research, but didn't love it enough to dedicate my whole career to it. And so the University of Texas is where I started a PhD program, and it brought me to Austin, which led me to the life that I have now, almost a decade later, still here. So ultimately so grateful. There's a saying in summer camp, we know, Gamzula Tova, everything happens for the best. And I really believe that. This is a perfect example of it.
Mic dropped.
But the program, I moved my whole life to Texas, which is a place I hadn't been to before I moved for the program. And then was like, oh no, I actually don't want to be a sociologist. Shoot, what do I do? I really had to look within myself and realize that what I loved best about the program was being a teaching assistant, connecting to the students, being in the front of a classroom, helping them understand intro to criminal justice, intro to religion and sociology and Soc 101, and then help them excel. So I parlayed that skill set into the corporate setting and then got that first job at Indeed and then now Apple.
Awesome. I love it. I love that trajectory and how that went and how it's again, right? You're not attached to necessarily what it looks like. It's just how do I get this need met? Right? You have a need to connect, to learn, right? You said I love consuming and I enjoy it, but I also, for me, I love to produce it, right? For me, I love it's a give and take for me, I guess, right? I do all this, a lot of corporate trainings where it's psychology based and I have to learn up on it. And I feel I was I need flashcards again. I can't memorize all this, but if you enjoy it, then it really sinks in. Right. And, but when I do my trainings, it's I keep these little nuggets in my back pocket, but I'm really just like, hey, what's the value of this? Oh, like studies show that if you actually do it this way, that this is actually more effective. So I do want that, but like, really, I want to make it bespoke to their lives. I want them to get that feeling, right? So I love how, I love like the trajectory that it went on, and that you're like fulfilling that need, whatever it is, learning, curiosity. Or you tell me, like, what is that for you? That's like why you do all of this.
Yeah, I think you've touched on so many parts of it. Uh, it's the support, it's the help, and it's like of others succeed, and it's like that mutual commitment to someone's goal. Like I really want really everyone to realize like learning happens in so many ways, and it does not just have to be like structured in a classroom. Like I'm all about
Yeah.
having a culture of learning, and learning could be these small nuggets just in the conversation. So it's working with a lot of managers to be like, how can you have more productive conversations with your people to create learning opportunities and experiences that way? And so I think it's a cool kind of environment to be in, to be able to help people rethink what learning is all about too, because a lot of us come with these academic experiences. We're like, oh, well, if I'm not in the classroom, I'm not learning. But that's not true at all. And so it's been really cool to, you like mic drop before. It's like, be like, boom, here's a way to learn. And someone's like, what? I didn't
Yeah.
realize that, and help them integrate learning into their day to day to make it really approachable, short and punchy, but ultimately effective. And that I think is really rewarding, not only for the learner, but for myself as well.
Yeah. So two things. So folks listening, watching, if you don't speak Hebrew, so she said Gam Zula Tova. I love that you dropped that, which is like a phrase that we went to, our summer camp was Jewish, as they are, a lot of them are in the Catskill Mountains in New York. Everything happens for the best, or everything happens for a reason. And so that's two, just wanted to like subtitle that for everybody. And then you talked about how like learning doesn't have to go a certain way, and that these companies have a learning culture, right? You talked about how like you're working with an operations team, but like some people do learning where you're learning, like a sales trainer, like someone who's had success in sales could become a sales trainer. So they're training content. So like anybody could really train anything and learn anything, but it's having like that culture at these companies. And that's what I'm noticing, that it's like we want to have a learning culture, a culture of growth. And so you're telling me sort of how it goes for you. So I'm curious, like what do I only see a small section of the pie. Like a company hires me to come in, and they're like, it's a specific conversation. So like it could be diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? They want me to come in and do some sort of inclusive conversation. What's the benefit of that? What's the, I might have some science on engagement, right? Engagement percentage increases by having teams that are more diverse and also more inclusive in the culture, right? So I'm only seeing that slice because I'm having cultural conversations with teams and departments at these companies, right? From startups to like major Fortune 500 companies. So what do you like in your background, like what do you see as like, what are the conversations you're having? Obviously it's the nature of your job, but maybe like on a grander scheme at Apple, or even a more global scheme, and just in the L&D conversation. I
Yeah,
threw a lot at you. Go anywhere you want with that.
Big question. All right. Well, we'll start more micro at Apple. Diversity, equity, inclusion, so important. It has become more and more of a focus for us. We are constantly hosting sessions, not only specific to those topics, but then really trying to integrate all of those best practices into every topic that we offer, to really make it clear that these biases are things we have to be mindful of, ways to be inclusive, things to look out for, and how best to respond are part of every conversation and not just its own bubble. So that is absolutely a focus area, and I'm seeing more and more of that. My team really supports a lot of soft skill development. So from professional development, like how to best influence, or storytelling with data. It's a very data-driven conversation. How do you present that well and get the buy-in you're looking for? Influencing for results similarly, or how to deal with change. Change is hard. How can you handle that in an ever-changing environment? But we also do a lot of leadership development too, really focusing on our manager and senior level leader populations to help them not only be the best leaders that they can be, but that ultimately then will translate to successful teams if they can lead successfully. I think that topic wise, I'm not sure how that, really is different than like at a macro level. I think that those are a lot of skills that everyone's looking for. I mean, of course,
Right.
if you're sales or you have more like objection handling and pitching, more harder skills, but in general, a lot of those best practices and skills are applicable. But I think that the way in which we learn is really shifting. Like as an industry, even 10 years ago, it was all about the classroom experience. And you said something before that's spot on. Everyone can teach someone something, but I will say there's an art to teaching, not everyone's a good teacher, even if you have something to share. So being a good trainer in the classroom, really important. And still, depending on the kind of experience you're trying to cultivate, if you want a rich conversation, get people together. That's so important, because then you can have that dialogue and really connect in a meaningful, real-time way. But a lot of people are busy and don't have time for that 60, 90, 120-minute session. So the industry has really shifted into e-learning, micro learning, we call it, like short bursts of learning on the computer, usually individualized, like you're just going through it yourself. And so, pros and cons. That's quicker. You can absorb it on the go, often on your phone. You can get a lot in a short amount of time, but you miss that conversation piece, that reflection piece, that dialogue and that relationship building that can come from a learning environment. So there's both. At where I work, we offer both kinds of learning to meet people where they're at, but still offer different types of experiences depending on what the topic is or what your preference is. But I see more and more of that. How can we share a lot in a short amount of time focus? Because, the needs of the business do take precedence.
Yeah, I'm definitely seeing that as well. If we can try to scale this, then why don't we just send them like a quick video, right? And then we don't have to get this person to fly in from here or waste their, spend any time doing this. And like for certain things, like that's great, right? It's like you want to be intentional with it. Like, yes, great opportunity, let's send them a quick video. But if you're doing only that all the time, it's like, well, now, and as we've learned from the pandemic, it's very isolating, right? Like you and I hopped on this Zoom and it was just like, luckily you and I haven't been on one. Like we both are like, oh, like back on Zoom. But we absolutely like bankrupted this, a year ago, right? Where we were just like, this is too much. I can't go on this anymore, right? So you want to be intentional and mixing it up. And one of the companies that I do work for, Mind Gym, like their bread and butter are 90-minute sessions where we are like packing a ton of content into that. Like, and we do, I threw diversity and that was a big one. I was like diversity, equity, inclusion. You're like, well, that's massive. And that permeates conversations. Like, as you said, you're like that, we're integrating that into everything. And then we're having how to adjust to change, how to do storytelling. So I do similar like things as that as well, but it's all within this bubble of how do we have an like inclusive team. And what was it that you said? You dropped an absolute gem. Oh, you said there's a science to this, but it's really an art. And I like absolutely love that, and that really resonates for me because I'm actually like, I'll go in to present. I will look at all that, like, okay, like I have change agility content. Like, how do you stay agile in an ever-changing atmosphere, right? And I have the science and I have all of this, and now I am here with 30 people that I have never met before at a company that I don't know anything. Well, I mean, I might know something about, but really not the ins and outs of their day-to-day. And so they're going to tell me about like how their day goes. And I'm not going to like shuffle through paper. I'm going to have like a real experience with them, right?
Right, right.
And then they ask me, like the managers, like maybe it's a team of managers, and they're like, well, how do I do this with my team? And I was like, that's like, I'm giving you science of why this is important. How you do this is up to you, like in your own humanity. Like that's the art, is how do you
Mm-hmm.
interact with a person and make them feel like just loved and accepted, right?
Yeah,
Like, you know what I mean? So I
totally.
loved how
But
you said that.
well, thank you. But to build on that, I think that that is so important, and also often the missing piece where you go to class and you learn all about why this is important. But if a learner, especially an adult learner, doesn't know how to make it applicable, uh, so you've taught them the relevance. Okay, they're like, okay, I get it. It's relevant. I should do this thing. But if they don't know how, then
Yeah,
it's just going to be stuck in that classroom. They're not going to be able to bring it to life.
yeah,
And so the how, I think, is such an art because there are so many ways to do it. But I think as L&D professionals, we need to focus our time on the how so that we can help people really bring it to life in a real way. And that's where the impact will be had, is when they practice the skills that they've
yeah.
now learned and value.
One of the beautiful things that like I've learned, uh, so I've been a coach for, I have no concept. I'm like looking out at the snow. It's snowing here in New Jersey. Um, I've been a coach for like 8 years, I think. Again, I have no concept of time anymore. My concept of time, thanks to the pandemic, has been shattered. I saw you, I saw you 15 years ago. I saw you yesterday. I don't know, somewhere in
Yeah,
between.
yeah,
Um,
same thing.
so, and then I've been a corporate trainer for like 4 years. And one of the things, so that nugget, right, that gem that I want people to have, so often when I work with corporate teams, they get it from each other. Like
Hmm.
I will be like, here's the why, here's what we want to practice. Now let's get into groups and like give each other ideas of how to do this within the context of your team, your department,
Totally.
your company. Because I can't be like, sometimes I might like be prescriptive. I'd be like, look, here's what you need to do in this situation. Sometimes I've got it. Sometimes I've
Right.
got it and I'll give it to them. And then other times I'm like, look, I don't know how this goes here. Like, what do you think, guys? Like,
Totally.
how would this work? And then they start working with each other, be like, oh, well, you know what I do with my team. And someone's like, you do that? Like, oh my God. And it's like,
Hmm.
it's this beautiful back and forth with them. And I'm just like, oh, like it's us. It's
Yeah.
so cool to see that like happen. And I don't even have to, I work even less, right?
Well,
Pay
it's
me,
interesting.
pay
Like,
me.
yeah, I think that a lot of people think that you know, it's common to say, oh, you're a trainer, and someone may use the word facilitator interchangeably, but I actually think they are descriptive of different kinds of roles. I describe myself as a facilitator for exactly the thing you're just describing, which is, yeah, you may think you're working less, but actually you've facilitated a conversation to get people to talk about things that they've kept up here, but they haven't shared with other people. And you, by way of this, the trust you've built, you know, um, the kind of the ground rules you've set out, and also the relevance you've built with maybe some of those statistics and the value of it, you're facilitating a really healthy conversation where people can learn from one another. So I always say I'm a facilitator because, sure, I have some slides I look at for reference to guide that conversation, to
Yeah.
share the to get the buy-in on the beginning of the with them, the what's in it for me, the why should I care. I have that laid out. But then it's the dialogue, it's the questions I'm asking, and then the answers that they have. That is like the juice of the whole
Yeah.
session. So,
Did you just
again,
abbreviate what's in it for me?
oh yeah, a little
What is
jargon
that?
for you. With them.
With them. I've never heard that. If that's a popular thing, then I'm not with
Yes.
it. With them.
Yeah.
I love
When,
that.
when I design a training, it's basically like your thesis statement. Like the first thing you do when you're like
Yeah.
writing an essay, you're writing a training, it's like, well, how am I going to hook the audience? Why
Yeah.
should they care about this thing? And it
What's
depends
in it
on
for
your
them?
audience. For
Yeah.
sales, it could be because you handle this objection better and you're going to make the sale. And for an operations team, it's about that data-driven mindset. So like hit them with a statistic, like 80% of people who do this have more engagement with their people. Wow. It's like,
Yeah.
really? Okay, I'm going to tune in now. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And you said, I love that distinction. It's almost like different muscles, your training muscle, your coach muscle, your facilitation muscle that you flex. And even though I say, even though I may be doing less, to sit back is actually, or it was harder, because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I do have the answer. Sometimes like I've got
Totally.
the nugget and I've actually got to like breathe and like hold on to it and like let them get there. I mean, and you're, I'm sure, starting to see this as like a parent, right? Because you're like, well, let me
Mm-hmm.
prevent all your skin knees. It's not going to
Mm-hmm.
happen. That's how they learn. That's how they grow. And it's like, I feel like I'm doing this like this parenting thing sometimes when I'm in the room, when I'm just like, they're like, well, what do you think? And I'm like, I don't know, ask them. Like, but I do,
Yeah, what do
like, I do
you
have,
think?
yeah, right. Or sometimes I'll own it. I'll just be like, I have an answer, but I'm gonna give you like 5 minutes to get there. I'll give you 10 more minutes. So yeah, I love that, right? So you like relate to yourself or label yourself as a facilitator,
Mm-hmm.
more so than if your job title is trainer or
Right.
whatever
Yeah,
that
and like
is.
guide that conversation. Yeah. They say, well, what do
Yeah.
you think? You can be like, well, like, let's take it back to you. Have you thought about it this way? Like really like
Yeah.
helping like guide the conversation. But it takes a lot of self-restraint. We're talkers, so it's really hard to sit back and not for a while.
Guilty as charged. Yeah. So what do you like? We talked about like why you do this or like what, but is there like a favorite thing that you do? Like a favorite aspect of your job or conversation to have? Like, is there like the place that you want to just like, this is what if I could do this all the time, like, boom.
Yeah, I think part of what I like about the job is that it is different all the time. Like every day is different, every project is different. And I am someone who would probably get bored if I did the same thing all the time. So I love being in, we'll call it the classroom, but I love engaging with the learners for sure. That's a top, maybe not number one, but like the thing I really enjoy. But I really enjoy all aspects of L&D, and my full title is program manager. And so what I think about that is owning learning programs from end to end. So that starts with understanding the needs of the business, meeting with stakeholders, meeting with employees, understanding what's going on and how can learning and development help. And then designing that solution. That could be a classroom training, that could be sending an article with some guiding questions for them to have as a discussion. It could be all sorts of things, but helping them think about how they could best address the need. And I also really love that evaluation piece. How do we as L&D practitioners know if we've made a difference, know if we've helped them solve the problem they were having that they originally identified? So I've been really dedicating a lot of time to survey creation and analysis and running focus groups, really demonstrating our impact to the business and really being able to quantify the results we've had, if any, so that we can not only, it's not to like stroke our egos, it's to really have an honest assessment, because we
Yeah.
in L&D tend to stick to anecdotal feedback. Oh yeah, this person like in the hall told me
They
it was
loved
really
it.
good, so it was great. But did everyone love it? Were there opportunities to make it even better? So we look at
Right.
that feedback really critically to say, how can we continue to improve our offerings? Or maybe we didn't hit the mark. We got to go back and design another solution because that problem still persists. So ultimately, we don't, sure, it's nice to know if someone was satisfied with the training, but really, really want to know, did their behavior change when they get back to their desk? Are they doing something differently because they spent time engaging with the learning solution we've created? And if we can prove that by way of surveys and conversations, I mean,
Yeah.
how powerful is that? We could really have it'll be an easy sell for the next person that comes along, and it
Yeah.
will really help them feel more confident and be like, whoa, I really did learn a lot because, you've done some analysis and that's clear that I have.
Nice. Yeah, I love that. That's something that I've been learning more recently, and I could totally relate. Like, it's very qualitative. They loved it. They got value out of it. They it transformed their life. But like, how do we make that tangible? How do we like show the meaning of this, right? Like
Right.
so yeah, I have been doing more diagnostics at the beginning, and then a diagnostic at the end, so we could see how we move the needle, right? So we could really put, and especially like, I mean, we're here to give that value, to give
Right.
people that feeling, but if you want to keep your job, you have to prove it, right?
I agree.
It has to be measured. It has to be
Yeah,
measurable. Yeah.
exactly. I mean, what team gets away with not ever measuring their impact? I mean, every
Yeah.
team has to be held accountable by some metrics, and I think L&D has gotten a free pass for a while of just that anecdotal 2 thumbs up, which I'll take, but we can go deeper, and I'm helping to push our team to do that.
Yeah, I love it. I think that's what's like, it feels like that's what's next, is just like more, is something more tangible, because it's like it's like they know theoretically it's valuable, but
Right.
how, like, why would a CEO, like, why would I do this? I'm
Right.
already rich. We're already making money. Why would I do this? So you have to be able to prove that value, right? And like you said, like you were talking about the different teams and the different ways of learning and different intentionality. Like, if you're talking to someone who like is heart-centered, be like, here's the joy and the love that comes from that. But if you're talking to someone who's very data-driven, you have to provide data for them, right? So it's a very intentional conversation.
Totally.
We are going to wrap up. I know I squeaked this in during nap time.
Yes, you did.
So tell the folks at home, you're a mom, like, what's, real quick, right? So I said earlier that, I relate to you. You're a master of the learningverse. I have definitely a level of respect and admiration for you. That's very real. But like, when you haven't seen somebody in a while, so even if you think a certain way of them and relate to them as an adult, a mom, a woman, just your face in my mind is not like, it's that face, but just like younger, right? And then the second I see you, that's shattered, and it's not that face anymore. You know about that? Like, when you see someone you haven't seen in a while.
Yeah, for sure.
From now on, when you remember that face, it is the most recent. That's definitely a psychological thing, right? That you remember that face. So now your face in my mind is this face. But even this master of L&D, this woman with so much experience, this mom, yeah, it was that waitress, that summer camp waitress face.
Carly, yeah, when I was 15, cool.
But I don't relate to you as that. It's just that visually in my mind. Anyway,
it's that recency bias, and that was your
recency
frame of
bias.
reference.
Yeah. But it's for the in terms of a visualizing a person.
Totally.
So anyway, so you're a mom. You just had a child, right? Tell me about that.
Our second, So my husband Aaron and I welcomed our second daughter into this world end of November, a Thanksgiving baby. Her name is Ruby, and she's napping, in the room next over. She joins her big sister Dahlia, and it's been, to say life-changing is pretty much an understatement to any parent out there. Every day is a new experience, but talk about a love of learning. Like, I'm really getting it in my home life. Every day both kids are doing something different, throwing out a different answer than the day before, doing something that they hadn't done before, and it's making me rethink how I parent, how to respond, how best to navigate. And so it keeps me on my toes, but I love it. It's the best environment to teach. It's like, what an opportunity to be able to help impact these kids' lives. I'm sure every parent feels like it's this deep responsibility, but like, what's such a special opportunity we have. And I'm so grateful that we get get to be on that journey with them. So yes, I'm currently on maternity leave. I have one more month left, but for anyone who knows me knows that I have ants in my pants, cannot sit still, and I love being productive. So when Josh reached out and was like, "Hey, you want to talk and like nerd out about L&D?" I was like, "Yes, let me do that." I'm going to take advantage of this time off to do some other cool things because I love talking about this and sharing. We're going back to learning and helping people learn. If people listen to this podcast and they pick up a nugget, you know, it will make my whole day. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity.
I am happy to oblige that need. I felt bad. I was like, hey, whenever you're ready to talk, you're like, hey, how about next week? I'm like, sure. Because I want you to, I have 3 children, right? I know, I don't know what it's like to be a mom, but I am witnessing it from the outside, and I revere that role. And I just wanted to be like, whenever you want to chat, I'd love to chat with you. You're like, let's do this next week.
Well,
I'll
say this, awesome. Like once I start my full-time job again, like you won't get time out of me, because then like really
fair enough.
Between mom and full-time work. So I'm like, I could squeeze it in between a nap time while you have the opportunity. Let's just make it happen.
I appreciate you very much squeezing me in between nap time in the day and in the maternity in between parenting and the career. And I can't help but I assume, right, I don't know how it goes, but being a mom, being a dad is huge for me. And you remember me being a camp counselor, and just like, I don't know what that is, right? It's just like that's the need, right? So like, how do I be, it wasn't like I was these guys' father. I was like a big brother at camp.
Yeah.
But there's that level of like, I bring that when I coach, right? When I go in to train and facilitate, that I guess it used to be, I feel like I used to do voiceover acting, and they would be like, the specs might be like Big Brother or a guy next door, right? So like, I feel like that shifted when I had kids into being dad, right? I bring being dad everywhere, like where I don't know if you relate to that, and being a mom, like in that nurturing, that cultivating community with your learners, and just being, and forget just doing it everywhere. When you are a mom, how meaningful that is. Like being a mom seems big for you. Like that's, even though you didn't articulate it, like being a mom is everything.
Huge.
Yeah, but I experienced that from you. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think with all the roles you mentioned, but especially parents, but even in L&D, it's like people look up to us. We are the purveyors of knowledge. We like have this information to share. Again, whether that's in the classroom or for our kids. And when you have people looking at you, with kids, they're looking up, with people in the classroom are looking straight out, but like they're looking to you for information, like help them navigate the world, be better. Like that's, again, that big responsibility, but it's exciting. Like I love being in that position. It's like, it's powerful almost. It's like, wow, people are looking to me to help them. Like, how can I do that as best as I can? And don't always get it right, but every day is an opportunity. So I welcome it.
Beautiful. I love it. They should, because they have corporate, in L&D, like it's not so defined. Like this person's a trainer, this person's a facilitator. They should just call us corporate dads and corporate moms, like camp moms.
Yeah.
Because you do all those things, right? You train, facilitate, coach. That should just be the job
program
title.
Manage. We're such organizers. I mean, we do it all.
It's you just go talk to mom, go talk to dad. That's what it'll say at our desk.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna let you go. This was awesome and hilarious and so fun and valuable. I think there were some gems that you dropped.
I hope
that
so.
People will. And if someone tells me, I'm gonna let you know. If
Please
they're like,
do.
oh man,
I'm counting on you for that. But yeah, Josh, this is great. Love what you're doing. Can't wait to see the podcast air. You'll have to send me the link. I'll share that with my network too. But this was really fun. So let it not be another 15 years so we connect again.
We will definitely talk again. I'll send you the link, send it to your colleagues, and send it to the bunk. Send it to the old.
Oh, I will. Hey, well, I'll say this, even if it is 15 years, like, remember this version of me, okay?
Yeah,
Like,
well, that's
in
I
15
can't
years
help
from
it.
now, like, yeah,
But
this
I
is the
can't
one to
help it
stick
now.
with.
That's how brains work, right? So I have
Mhm.
stared at this face for, for the last 45 minutes. So now
So this
when
is
I
it.
talk about it is, and until the next time I see you, that's how like our,
Right. I'm cool with that.
I hope that was okay that I said that. I don't
Of
relate to you
course.
as
It's the honest
a
thing. I remember
16.
you with a baseball hat and a Camp Monroe shirt. So, it's the same.
I was considering wearing that to today's call. You're the best. Much love to your family, and we'll
Right
talk
back
again
at
soon.
you. Sounds
All
great.
right.
Thanks so much, Josh.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.